All right, and good morning, everyone. It is August the 20th, 2020. Today, we're talking about gearing up for remote work and back to fall. So, whether this is your first time with us at the Remote Pathways monthly community call or you are a regular, welcome. It's so good to have you. I'm Jennifer Britton, one part of the Remote Pathways podcast, and excited to be with you today, Michelle, as well as those who are joining us live and recorded. So, Michelle, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I feel that energy of gearing up for this remote work.
Absolutely. And we're not quite there. As you notice, I'm still continuing to work remote. This may
Yes.
be our last call that you'll see me here or not. Again, it's a season of flux, so it's hard to say what fall is really going to look like in many parts of the world. I don't know about you. I think you're getting back to sort of a routine. Where are you in your part of the world, Michelle, in terms of getting back to fall, getting back to school and routines? Is it happening? Is it not happening?
Yeah. So my son is in community college and he started back this week. So yes, I'm in parent school mode right now. So maybe that's why I'm in that heart space today.
And we're not quite there yet. And even yesterday, we got an email saying it's going to be staggered. So it might not be like normal. So, regardless, here's where we want to drop you into. Today is really about gearing up and it is about planning and sometimes planning for uncertainty, continued uncertainty. So, Michelle has pulled together for us some great photographs as our intro warm up. And, Michelle, why don't I get you to take us through this exercise today?
Yeah, so today, this visual is all about planning space. When you think about planning, what's the environment that you seek? And this may be a different answer depending on the season or what type of events you're planning for. So, Jennifer, we'll kick off with you. I'd love to hear what two environments that you enjoy because you do
Oh,
like to travel, right? So, and maybe pick the picture that you like, to plan and then connect it to what type of planning that you like to do in that environment.
I'm so glad you allowed me the choice of two because the canoe at the top actually is my ideal planning space. I did finally get out for a paddle a few days ago. And yesterday I was actually doing some planning on a rock
Nice.
that looked very similar to where that canoe is really tethered up to. So that is my summer mindset. And I think when I really do a lot of vision work, I like to be outside. I like to be in a place where I can see and feel expansive. But then there's also the practical planner in me where I know I need to be sort of at my desk, at my keyboard, maybe not connecting in with folks, although a lot of planning work that I do happens during virtual retreats that I run, and they're business planning retreats. So as I'm taking the group through it, I can do my own planning work as well, in
Mhm.
snippets. So I would say those are my two: the canoe and being at my desk, usually
Oh,
with the group.
so good.
How about you? What are you leaning into today?
Yeah, well, like Linda just shared, she just got back from the beach. The beach is my happy place, and that's where I like to go, probably for the big picture spiritual connection. I do like to go outdoors, and nothing calls my heart like the ocean. And then I think the bottom left, where the ladies on a community call, I definitely enjoy like attending your retreats or other things where I'm in a community planning together. We're talking about collaboration and I'm learning from others. So those are my
Nice.
two.
Those are your two. And thank you again for giving us two. So
Yeah.
Linda, I know we have you on the call today. Are you seeing our screen? And would you be able to share what's your ideal planning space?
Yes. Well, again, not necessarily planning, but I guess creating. So I guess you could say that's planning. It is always outside. Just um, I feel like that's where I kind of get a lot of revelation, and so that trail in the woods, that's one of my favorite places to be. And then just something that my eye just like went to as soon as the screen popped open was I love that the white couch and the plant just means clean and simple and organized. So that would be an ideal place for me too, to just, you know, be able to sit and create and plan.
Mm. Nice. And this really, I love that you've brought us to this question today, Michelle, with all these different options. One of the themes that we've had in recent episodes, we had Cindy Hooker recently, who is also a PlanDoTrack facilitator. And today we're going to dip our toes back into PlanDoTrack, my workbook planner. So ideal planning, whatever is important. So let's go and drop right in that, because we are really in the midpoint of Q3, right? We've got another month for the midpoint of momentum. I know that we've got a few others on the call, and I'm so eager to get to planning. I didn't even ask. Becky, did you want to indicate what your planning space is as well?
All the above.
All the above. Okay, all the above. Good enough. And that's a nice frame, right? Because planning can look like different things. And to reflection and momentum and experimentation, there may be different sort of rhythms. So this month truly is gearing up for back to work, remote work style, which might be a little bit different. And I think Cindy, in our last call, episode 18, she was talking about quite a variety of things, from project management to working remote, and then PlanDoTrack. But gearing up for back to work style, where do you want to focus this fall? Like, what's important in terms of cultivating a rhythm, a way of being, etc. So Michelle, you're maybe a bit further ahead down the trail on this one than me. What are you working, or what is your rhythm for the fall?
I think this sounds crazy because we're talking about going in the future, but focusing on the now, sometimes just within the 24-hour window, because there is so much unknown on what's going to be happening around. I'm just choosing to focus on what is known, and really with a heart of service, right? Acts of kindness. You talk about PlanDoTrack. That's kind of what I want to track. I want to write down any inspirational ideas that come to my heart about serving others, and then I want to track those results for impact. So
I love that. That's so interesting. And yeah, I would even say in my work, usually I'm a long-term planner, but my long-term has gone shorter, right? So my focus this fall is definitely from now until next spring, but normally I would probably be thinking now until the next 3 years. So I think all of our windows are perhaps changing, not all of them, but many people. Linda, any thoughts on this? Like, where do you want to be focusing this fall? Is it the now? Is it the future? Is it around projects?
It's kind of a little of all of it. I have an opportunity, hopefully, on the horizon that's going to really require a lot of my time. If the opportunity comes forth, then it's a whole different shift of work and work lifestyle and remote working. So I'm kind of, I'm trying to just really focus on, okay, what is happening today? But in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, I need to have a big picture vision of, because when you change directions, it can kind of, it's exciting. And then it's kind of scary because you're like, okay, am I going to like this or not? So I'm like trying to really say, okay, what, if this change does happen, I think what I need to do in this space right now is go ahead and write out, the big picture goals and, why would this be, ideal to move forward in. So I'm kind of in the middle, of, some things. So waiting to hear back, but so focusing today, but also, planning for, the future, the goals of the future too, around what might happen.
And I'm sure that you bring voice there, focusing on the now, but planning for the future. I think a lot of us are in that space. So it's been wonderful. I think this is a segue now into PlanDoTrack, because when I wrote this 2 years ago, a little bit more than 2 years ago, it was really with this notion of like, we need to get into planning, but we need to get into action, and the action is going to reinforce the plan. And then, as Michelle, you said, we always want to be tracking. So I thought it might be interesting as we gear up for fall, gear up for whatever season. And again, I'm keeping in mind that people might be watching this in the middle of winter or the middle of summer. We don't know. This is part of the digital world in terms of, we're having a conversation today, but how does it scale to the future? And I think really with PlanDoTrack, as I look at actually the numbers of book sales in the last 6 months, it's just started to skyrocket. So we're really on that upward trajectory. And I thought it would be useful, if you, whether or not you have a copy of the book, there's a whole related website. It's called PlanDoTrack.com. And you'll find a series of blog posts, you'll find resourcing and materials over there. But I really wanted, in today's mindset of going back to work, going into a new routine, to get you thinking about, like, how are you planning? And are you being bold, right? To Linda, I don't know what you have on the horizon, but I'm imagining it's a bold move, that it's like, ooh, big change. And with change, with any sort of change, bigger, large, bigger, small, it does require some boldness. Leaving our safety net and moving into something new means that we have to, like, get out on a skinny branch a little bit. And that can be scary. It can be exciting. It can activate a whole series of emotions. So even as you move into your planning, be noticing where perhaps you're holding yourself back, or maybe, as it happens sometimes, people plan too bold. So I like to really remind us that there's a possibility of contingency planning. And I think if we look at 2020, contingency planning has come back in favor. So contingency planning is simply the what if planning. What if, as I start my day, this person calls or that thing doesn't work? We really have to start thinking in the what if. And unlike, maybe, this certainly has never been my world, but for some, like, you might have started the day 6 months ago and had a list of 5 things and it got done. Today, you might start the day with a list of 5 things, and by lunch you have 15, and by the end of the day you get 3 done. So how do we also become comfortable and confident in that uncertainty? And this is where anchoring our ideas becomes so important, right? Part of our digital planning space is that I think it's been very disruptive for many who have done everything on the screen, because we don't necessarily see it. So invitation for you this fall to really think about the planning system, like the blueprint here. Is it useful for you to have a bit of a one-page blueprint or a one-page plan, as I would call it, visible at any time? And that one-page plan might actually be a little bit more higher on the horizon, so that with the changes that are ensuing, it allows you to really move fluidly, but still see what's important. And it's that vision. We just heard Linda talk about the importance of vision. And I think it also, in any planning phase, disruption or not, we want to keep bringing it back to values and our purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, why do we do what we do? Why are we here? What's important in terms of making our mark? Or is it to be of service? Is it to have a different type of impact? And that really links us into purpose and our values. So I know, Michelle, in your work, you do a lot of work in this domain.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to talk just for a minute about what you do in your programming to help remote workers connect in with these areas?
Yeah, it's a lot. It goes back to conversation and just holding that place and asking those powerful questions and letting someone just explore that, exploring that with them, and then anchoring those ideas onto paper so that in some way, or maybe sometimes even in a creative way, like a visual, because when you step into the area that you've done the planning for and life starts to happen, you need the visual anchor to come back to, oh, this is why I'm doing this. This is why it's important. And you can also tell when you're getting off track. It can pull you back if you start going off course, because sometimes you'll feel it, that inner compass in you, and you can't really describe it. But if then you go back to where you've written it down and you're like, oh, this is why I'm sensing this. And I also just words of encouragement to Linda. Linda, you are a phenomenal leader. So for you to step into and have this opportunity to come into this remote space, I'm already excited about what you're going to glean and share with others, because that is definitely a pattern with you. So I imagine there's a great purpose in you stepping into these waters. Very exciting.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Planning is key, and sometimes not holding it too tightly, but keeping it there, letting, the universe or whatever powers, take over and help direct us. And again, can't stress the importance of vision. So if you haven't visited or revisited your vision in a while, maybe pull it out as you step into fall. And that's going to help you with like a reminder of what's important. So it's not just enough to plan. We can't really get in that analysis paralysis place. We do need to move into action. And action today might feel a little different than it did 3 months ago or 6 months ago. So what are the daily steps? Part of Plan, Do, Track, and Coaching Business Builder is grounded in the philosophy of daily steps plus consistent action creates momentum. So daily steps, even if a daily step is only one thing, if you're doing it on a daily basis over 30 days, that's an incremental change. You might not see it right away because it feels so small, but in fact, it starts to create its own momentum. And with the doing, probably as Michelle has said, like it's a time of routine change, a season of routine change. What do you want your routines to look like? Are there things that that will like slip off the rail? One of the things that I've appreciated working remote this summer is that I'm in a much smaller building. And so I don't have to spend a lot of time getting things organized because it's such a small space, everything has its place. So even like cleaning up my office only takes a few minutes versus like most days, most weeks when I'm in Toronto, I do like half an hour every Saturday morning, super early. I go into my office and like file stuff away. Here, I could do it in just minutes because I can't afford to have things all over the place. But the learning, so here's the learning for me. The routine that I'm going to commit to is actually doing more of this daily clean when I get back to my desk in Toronto, whenever that is. So think about your routines, what might work and what might be a nice little tweak, because with routines, we create habits. And years ago, we used to say, yeah, it only takes 21 days to create a new habit. In fact, research by Dr. Gloria Mark shows it's a range. It could be anywhere from in the mid-20s up to about 66 days. And so routines do take time, but really think about what it is that you want to create in your work, your life, your work life, your domain. And that can help you really get into the routines and find the motivation. If we link things back to the big picture, why am I doing this? What's important? It will help us not only be motivated, but chunk it down into more manageable bite-sized pieces. And I think it's those bite-sized pieces with all that's on the go in this moment in time. And I think it'll be, probably a year from now, it'll still be lots on the go. Milestones are key. So for you, Michelle, again, you do a lot of work using Plan, Do, Track with your clients. What do you see that's important for people to note around the doing in Plan, Do, Track?
Yeah, I think it's just what you said. We got to put action around the planning to really have full understanding of whether we even like it or not, or whether it's working or not, or whether it's making an impact or not, or it brings clarity, right? It brings clarity and greater understanding when you're actually in action and you're moving. So you can choose your pace, right? But continue to move forward.
For sure. And so it is the doing. And that's a nice segue. It's not just enough to plan and do it. We got to track it. Is it working? Is it not? What impact is it having? And if we're running so fast, we just don't get to see, we don't get to evaluate what's important. So the track piece is really the evaluation. And that means that we want to have some numbers. We want to check our metrics, whether it is a practice we get into at the start of the month, the mid-month, weekly, monthly, annually. Like, notice your numbers, right? Data is critical. And our brains remember things in a certain way, but data might actually say something different. So there's a whole series of tracking tools in section 5 of the workbook planner. Again, it's a workbook and planner. It's an undated annual planner that works monthly, quarterly, and also annually. Thank you for showing your copy, Michelle. And the whole last sort of 150 pages is all about this tracking. And so part of it is, having micro pauses. Part of it is making sure that you use those pauses to learn and then iterate. And iterate simply is adjust, track, redo. And when we learn and we iterate, hopefully we're also celebrating. Because I think it can be very easy to say, oh, I didn't get that done. Or, oh, tracking can lead to a bit of loss of motivation. And it could also lead to a reframing of, you know what, I've seen that this item has been on my list for the last 3 months and I just am not getting it done. let's pause and start to ask, why is it not getting done? Is it something I think I should be doing? Is it something that I really can be doing? So, take time to really assess what's happening. And with that tracking, over time, we start seeing some amazing things. And when I say over time, I'm walking my talk on this one, because when Coaching Business Builder came out end of July 2018, I started my own rigorous practice. I'd started a few months before that of just doing these using the monthly tools in my own planning process. And every month end, since then, I've held a month end reflection process. It's about an hour. We take a look at what we did and then where we're going. And it's really fascinating to sort of see the learning captured. If I tried to retain that in my brain, I wouldn't have it. But the micro pause of reflection and writing helps to anchor things so that you can really see more, perhaps accurately, what happens, because our brain rewrites our own story, sometimes to the optimistic edge, sometimes to the pessimistic edge. It really depends on how we're wired. So also think about how you can use your data to really create perhaps even a new story that's going to help you be even more successful.
Oh, you're
So,
stirring
Michelle,
something up in my heart right here. So yeah, when you're first doing it, if you can step into it as an adventure, right? And then I wonder what story is going to be told, and then when you're tracking, you're going back and reading the story. Was it true? What changed? So I love that. It's great. Great.
Yeah. So again, for those of you, we've got Linda and Becky on the call today. Here's a question for you. As you step into your routine right now, which one of these is most important for you to focus on? We can hold all three, but again, like with all the complexity, it's useful maybe to just pick one. I'll start with you, Michelle. Like if you had to think about the next month or two, where do you want to focus? Is it more on planning, on doing, or on tracking?
I mean, do.
You're on do. Okay. How
Yeah.
about you, Linda? Is it plan, do, or track, do you think?
Just immediately right now, it's going to be plan. But if things come to fruition, I really want to incorporate tracking to acknowledge I really don't track. I mean, I'll celebrate from time to time, but I really do not track what I'm doing. So I do not understand the amount of work that I'm putting in or the value of the work that I'm putting in, because I just don't track it. So really, honestly, kind of just seeing this and looking at the words plan, do, track, it just kind of, to me, it kind of stirs up something in me to be, I think I would really feel like I'm accomplishing a lot if I would really take note and track what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm with you there, Linda. I'm always doing is my natural MO, modus operandi. But I need to be more intentional on tracking and looking at the data, right? I naturally, as a scientist by training, I'm always gathering data, but am I taking a look? Am I analyzing the data? And so I think for me this fall, it's about a bit more micro analysis. It's not going to be huge weeks of analysis, but I think maybe on a weekly basis, I want to get better, because in probably all of 2020, actually, this whole year, I've been very intentional in tracking on a daily and weekly basis, but I'm not going back to look at the meta view of that. So that's what I'm going to commit to doing, and just sort of came out of my mouth right now. I know we've got you here as well. Any thoughts or anything you want to share around the plan, do, track for you? We'll see if Becky's able to respond, and if not, it may mean stepped away. Yeah, go ahead. Do we have you there, Becky?
I'm kind of
All right, we've got a
Awesome.
poor connection, so we'll invite you, if you can, share with us by chat, and then we can always put your voice in. Is it my connection, Michelle?
We can
Okay, we'll get Becky to chat it in. How does that sound?
That sounds good.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thanks for trying, Becky.
She's on mute. Now we just got things coming in,
I'm
right? It's so funny.
in a new.
It's so interesting. I don't know. It's a tech moment. So
Career.
what we'll do,
And that.
what we'll do is we'll invite everyone to really think about PlanDoTrack. And as I said, there's a whole series of resources over at PlanDoTrack.com. Head on over to the blog. I'm starting to blog again, not always weekly, but as we get into fall, getting back to some of the plan, do, and track. So released yesterday. Really, was it just yesterday? Remote working myths, one of my favorite episodes. So what are the facts? What are the myths? What myths have you been making up? What facts have you been making up and assumptions around remote working? A lot of these have been decimated, I would like to say. They've been blown up in recent months. And it actually links in, I'm trying to see if I have a date. Back in April, I did a call, I did a video, a YouTube video, you can Google this, myths around virtual and remote work and teams. And it inspired me to say a few weeks later, Michelle, we've got to start talking about this remote working myths. So we actually recorded this a few months ago. Think about what you've seen in your world, but it's definitely an interesting podcast to listen to. And we're now continuing to move through the year around week 33, at least when we're recording this. And this week's theme is all about prioritization. So again, back to plan, do, track, prioritization is a really key thing. And if we're planning without tracking, we might not be prioritizing the things that the data really says. So keeping it simple, if you want some tips and questions to refer into, check out the download. There's always a weekly download that's going to be available to you throughout 2020. So run over to the remotepathways.com blog site. That's where you're going to find these downloads, and definitely make sure that you're using them. And this week, our question is, Michelle, what's the question?
Yeah. Basically, you fill in the blank will lead to better meetings. So this is piggybacking on another conversation that we have, but just having that micro pause a little bit to consider what will lead to better meetings altogether. So let it spark a conversation with your team.
And as organizations get back to work, really think about your meetings and how effective are they? So Stephen Covey wrote many years ago, most of us spend too much time on what is urgent and not enough time on what is important. A great reminder, what is happening in your world? Are you focusing on all the fires, or are you doing the most important work, which sometimes is about relationships, renewal, and all the other things? So that is our tip to remember. And a little plug for something that I'm wrapping up. If you're free later today at 9 a.m. or tomorrow, I'll be back here in Zoom with the Standout Virtually 5-day challenge. I've been totally enjoying it. It's running this entire week, and I've been bringing together people live and via email to help you stand out virtually. What's going to create memorable and impactful virtual conversations, whether it's a meeting, whether it's a call like this, what's going to help you stand out in the sea of what unfortunately sometimes is characterized as Zoom fatigue or other. And so this is being hosted on a new platform I've just started up. It's known as the Virtual and Remote Visionaries Hub over on Facebook. So if you're on Facebook, do come and join us, the Virtual and Remote Visionaries Hub. I'm committed to doing several challenges a year now. I've really enjoyed it. And the notion of a challenge is to take daily action to get into that speedy momentum. So we're just into day 4, haven't yet done the call for day 4, but just hearing from the members or the participants who have joined me this week, they're seeing great impact, even from small changes. So think about joining us for the last 2 days. That's day 4 and 5. You can find out more at standoutvirtually.com or join us at the Virtual and Remote Visionaries Hub. And that sort of has built on some of the remote team builder work that I've been doing. Of course, there's a new on-demand program that was launched a few months ago, linking it back to the Standout Virtually. People are really hungry for tools, so stay tuned, because most likely in a few weeks, I will be doing a masterclass around virtual facilitation tools for practitioners. And that really has come out of the remote team success days that I've continued to host. So that's where I've been on the go. How about you, Michelle? You've been doing some other stuff yourself. So what's percolating for you?
Yeah, I chose not to share anything yet because I've been listening to the voices in the field. So stay tuned. We'll see.
Stay tuned. And that's a big one. Stay tuned. And we're going to be back on Thursday, September the 3rd for our next monthly community call, topic to be announced. You might hear a little bit from Michelle and I. We're listening deeply into where you as a community want to go. We're looking at perhaps at some point starting a lab and longer term ongoing meeting phase, maybe supplementing it with, master classes and challenges, either under a Remote Pathways banner or under our own individual banners. So definitely stay tuned, but we're here committed to serving you with our 2 monthly community calls. So join us. That Thursday, September 3rd call will be at 7 a.m. I think, people will probably be either here or not because it'll be just before the Labor Day weekend, which is always the end of summer. And, part of what we're thinking about really is this notion of the Remote Pathways Lab, which will be ongoing components, including some virtual co-working, which I'm personally really excited about. I think as people get back to work, we'd like to offer some discrete and maybe longer term program packaging for folks to support you in getting your best remote work done. And with that, I think that's it, Michelle. So quick, in the last minute, what is the one learning that you're taking out of the call today? What are you leaving our call with today, Michelle?
Inspiration.
Inspiration. And Linda, what's your learning from today's call?
Motivation.
Motivation. And for me, I'm going to say it's all about tracking. Becky, we'll get you to turn to chat if you can hear us and let us know what your learning is. But thank you as always for joining us. You can listen into more of these recordings over on YouTube or check us out at remotepathways.com. We'll see you soon.
Bye, everyone.
Take care, everyone. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Be well. Bye-bye. Bye, Michelle.